Jennifer Lenahan, and I'm the director of the Career Explorations and Arts and Sciences Initiative here at the School of Arts and Sciences. And we are, right now, we offer a course for students, a 1.5 credit course called Career Explorations in Arts and Sciences, designed mainly for sophomores and juniors. We also have some sections for seniors. And this is a course that's really designed to help you figure out what you're going to do next and help to get you prepared. We also help you to explore and better understand the resources that the Office of Career Explorations and Success can offer you. So we have a whole ecosystem here to support you. And one of the things we do in this course usually is we bring in alumni. We have a big alumni event in the spring. That wasn't possible this year. So instead, we put together this week of career readiness webinars and brought in a number of alumni as well as other career experts to really help you, one, see that there's a big Rutgers family out there, that while this is all very scary, very emotionally devastating for a lot of people, it helps to know that we're all together in this and that we're here to support one another, and to give each other some helpful information, hopefully. So I'm very happy today to have with me a former colleague, Professor William Rogers from the Blaustein School here at Rutgers, and he's also the chief economist at the Haldrich Center for Workforce Development, where he and I worked together for a while. And he has a very impressive resume. He is currently just appointed to the Governor's Commission on the Restart and Recovery for New Jersey. And he's also served as the chief economist for the Labor Department under the Clinton administration and has many, many other accomplishments. He's really a great person for us to be connecting with to get a better handle on what's happening out there. So I'm really happy to welcome him. And I just wanted to give a brief overview of some of the housekeeping items. So as we go along, if you have questions, go ahead and write those in the Q&A area. You can use the chat area to communicate with the host if you're having technical problems or other comments that you might want to make. And so we are going to talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for questions, and Stacy will help us to read off some of those questions and get all of your burning questions answered. So that's how we're going to proceed today. So welcome, Bill. It's very nice to see you. Can you perhaps tell us a little bit about yourself and your own career journey?
Sure. Yeah, Jen, thank you for asking me to spend a little bit of time with folks today. I first want to wish everybody that they are, weathering this event, this storm, and taking care of themselves, whether it be yoga, whether it be walking, and just eating well and trying to sleep well, or meditation, but just doing the things that you can do to safely, but to help you, sort of the mental health side of this thing. This is unprecedented. I was talking to my parents who were early 80s, and they did nothing like this over their lifetime, and clearly nothing like this over my lifetime. A little about myself. This is not my first natural disaster. I think many of you have also experienced Superstorm Sandy. But the natural disaster that really, from a personal and professional standpoint, that really I cut my teeth on was a little-known hurricane that hit Virginia a few years before Katrina. At that time, I was just a young assistant professor, an associate professor, but still relatively young, much younger than I am now. And the storm hit, it was like a Category 3, and not that major, but it hit, it hit the Virginia coast during high tide. And so it ended up pushing all this water up the rivers surrounding the city of Williamsburg. Many of you may have gone to Colonial Williamsburg when you were younger. But to sort of condense this, what ended up happening, we basically were without power for about 3 weeks. Fortunately, it was late summer, so it was warm, but it was kind of beautiful weather afterward. But the trauma that I began to see from my economics experience as a professor there, with students having to go home and not being able to get back to school, so that was disrupted. But also, more importantly, seeing our most vulnerable residents, people who are hourly paid workers, landscapers, housekeepers, or people who lived in communities uh, that had above ground electrical wiring. And so, these families, they were without a paycheck. If you don't work, if you're hourly paid, you don't work, you don't get paid. And so this went on for 3 weeks, and then even the recovery process was slower in lower income neighborhoods. And the way Williamsburg is situated, you could have homes with $1 million values next to homes uh, that are half or even a quarter of that, or even much less than that. So it was a very trying time, and that where we are now just brings back a lot of those memories. And what's going to be important is how we move forward. Do we just in a rush try to get back and to some new normal, or do we say, hey, let's get back to a new normal, but let's not sow the seeds of more inequality, such that young people like yourselves will have a harder time finding jobs, getting a toehold into the economy, into the labor market, and progressing. Or let's make sure we make the investments right now, such that uh, some of our states, cities that have been challenged for decades, don't continue to be challenged. We got to close the gap. So those are the kinds of things I've been thinking about a lot and writing about a lot, and especially within mine, because I have 3 adult children now who are entering the labor market. Fortunately, the ones in school, 2 are in college, and 2 have graduated, and they fortunately have jobs, and they seem to be pretty secure. But those are the things that keep me up at night, whether it be a personal position, or either from a standpoint as a parent, but then also in terms of this is my life work. So let me stop there and see where you want to go, Jennifer.
Sure. No, that's thank you for that introduction. I think it's really helpful to understand that perspective. Thanks for sharing that story. So we're all hearing the terrible things about the economy right now. But I'm also hearing, as I talk with employers and recruiters, as I look at some of the data that's out there, that there are these pockets of hiring that are still happening, and sometimes pretty robustly. Um, so which industries and jobs are you seeing that are perhaps not as badly affected, or where there are pockets of hiring going on?
Hmm. Well, I mean, there's hiring in lots of places that are what you can you find odd, right? Like the healthcare industry for the longest period of time, even during the Great Recession, actually was adding jobs. I think is continuing to add jobs. Uh, One of the really in novelty sort of changes, and again because of this virus, is the sort of the growth of telemedicine. And this is just another example of how we've had these since the early 2000s. We've had these sort of changes in how we work, where we work, when we work, and with whom we work. And one of those big levers is technology. So any industry where you can see how technology could be used to, in this case, deliver a product or a service in a safer manner in response to the situations that people are facing, there's going to be opportunity there. Finance is going to be, I think, is another area that's growing. But I would be looking at industries that are, that are in some respects, not once they're reinventing themselves, but industries and occupations where where uh, you're seeing innovation. That's one thing that's great about our economy, is great about Americans, is you're seeing that in this time of crisis where uh, just a month ago we wouldn't have talked about telemedicine. as being a real something that we really need to be doing. But there's a need for it. They say necessity is the mother of invention. There's a need for it, but that also means there's growth areas. I think I've done some work on robotics. You're going to continue to see probably the increased use of robotics, but it was as a way to help the bottom line. But now going forward, it could also be used to, right, again to deliver services in a safer and healthier way. So, you know, it's and it's a tough time. Don't get me wrong, but there are but it's just as one cylinder is turned off in terms of retail, in terms of you know, retail for groceries or retail in general. Uh, there are other cylinders in the economy that are turning on, and also even those cylinders that look like they're shut down. Best Buy and these companies, they're rethinking about how to deliver in a post-COVID world.
Right. I mean, that's what I've been hearing, talking to a lot of recruiters across different industries. I'm hearing pretty consistently that around half are, reacting the way they have in past recessions, just pulling their internships, pulling those job opportunities back. But in the other half, they're sort of split between just being on pause and rethinking this and doing some rapid transformation. Like, especially I've heard in life sciences, in IT, in finance, they're transitioning to remote internships that are shorter and start later.
That's
And
right.
that's just a phenomenon that we didn't have in 2008 or 2001. So,
That's right. Yeah, I serve as the board chair of a think tank called the National Academy of Social Insurance. It's a think tank based in Washington, D.C., and our mission is about educating policymakers about the importance of social insurance, so Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the unemployment insurance system. So my staff of 12 is quite quite busy right now, but one of our signature programs is an internship program, and the board was working with our CEO. We were very adamant about wanting to keep that. At least what we decided to do is give students like yourselves the option that if you wanted to do it as a remote experience this summer where you are paid, great. But also we're giving the people the option to defer into next summer. So a lot of flexibility there.
right. And I was even hearing stories in education, early education, for example, people who had been furloughed, but then they're now experimenting with ways to use technology. So they're doing webinars with parents and children on crafts and how to do things. So they're sort of bringing daycare into the home in a way.
Exactly. I'm past that stage, but I understand it and remember how invaluable having that option is.
Right. So, that's the good news. That's the silver lining here, is that there are some new opportunities for reinvention. You have to just kind of look out for them. So, I know
And
you.
if I could say, add on to that, I mean, to the students that are listening, unlike myself and Jennifer, you grew up with, as my old boss, the labor secretary Alexis Herman used to say, the only thing that is certain is change. That's the economy, that's the society that you all have grown up with. So, you all are much more malleable than, let's say, people in my generation and older. So that's where, as we're going forward, yeah, you all want to use that flexibility of thinking and of flexibility of experiences and your diversity as tools and assets.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier you've recently been appointed to the Governor's Restart and Recovery Commission. I know you also mentioned that that gets started on Monday, so there's not much to say about that in particular. But in general, I've heard a lot of students talk about, possibly just sitting out, sitting this one out, not looking too much for jobs, kind of laying low with the expectation that once the restart comes, jobs will just come flooding back in and then they'll be able to apply. Is that how you think things are likely to play out? And do you think it's a good idea to just sit this one out, or is there maybe a better strategy?
Yeah. I mean, there's no right or wrong. As I coach a young men's soccer team, and there's no right or wrong decision or choice here. Uh, I think if you look at the kind of consensus that seems to be building amongst economists, that we're not going to have a V-shaped recovery. That is where we've had this sharp downturn over a month or two, and then we're going to get this rapid improvement. That we're probably going to have more like a Nike type of symbol, the swoosh. That it's going to be has been a deep and very rapid deterioration, but for a variety of reasons, it's going to be it's going to be a little more extended. Now, what's that extension? Is it into early fall? Is it into January? Is it into the middle of next year? We just don't know. I mean, that it's going to come down to one, the virus. What is this virus going to do? Number two, it's going to come down to our behavior in terms of the physical. I like to call it physical distancing as opposed to social distancing. But you're seeing like supposedly this weekend's supposed to be a gorgeous weekend here on the East Coast, and I know the governor just tweeted and said, he will basically put back the restrictions, if we don't as individuals really collectively becoming a community, if we don't practice good physical distancing. So number one, it's going to be the virus itself. Number two, it's back to what stuff we can control, our behavior. And then number three, related to our behavior, it's going to really hinge on consumer and worker confidence. Consumer confidence in the sense of how confident do we feel that we can go to the grocery store or other types of stores, or non-essential types of stores, and feel that the store owners there are sanitizing and keeping things clean, keeping things sanitized for shoppers. And again, that's a wild card, right? And then the other big wild card too is in terms of, I think, again, the length of the pace of the recovery is on the worker side. That that I know some worker individuals I've shared with me that they're concerned about, whether children or young adults, they're concerned about whether or not their employer has adequate resources to create a safe workplace. And then the final part. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons, but another major one is just what people feel like the income effect is going to be. That is, in economists, we talk about an income effect. Ideally, we want our incomes moving out, but we still are trying to figure out the extent to which incomes have been really knocked in and knocked down, and that relates then to the next piece of how fast we get the stimulus, or I'm going to call it stimulus, the rescue types of policies, unemployment insurance, these checks, the paycheck protection program, how fast this stuff can get integrated into Main Street to where it'll build confidence. It plugs people's budgets. It plugs companies' budgets, and if we can do that faster, that'll then lessen the erosion in consumer confidence, and then give us I think a faster recovery. Uh, so that's the kind of a vision, and when I look at my crystal ball, seeing what's we're gonna see moving forward. With regards to your second question, Jennifer, should you kind of chill out and play Apex or play what's the other one? My son was playing this the other night. But FIFA or whatever. Um, the answer is do a little bit of that, but don't check out. I think you need to continue to look at the job boards, but I think most importantly is start to send out. Right, make sure you got that cover letter up, your resume ready, and start to send it out to potential employers or for interns. And you don't necessarily even have to be asking for a job, but just starting to build that network. If you already have, many of you already have networks, but starting to really activate that network, because most jobs still, even though in this day of technology, most jobs are still found through your networks, found through friends, families, and neighbors who not only serve as mentors for you, but serve as advocates for you. And you're going to need your advocates for your success in these next few months. And all through your career, you need your advocates for success. But in an economic downturn, those advocates become even more important.
Sure, and I would think too that these days, talking with people in your network, reaching out to people who are working in different fields, is going to give you some of the best insights into the trends, into what's really happening, into which of these industries are transforming to possibly create new types of jobs, into what types of skills are going to help you to be more competitive
That's right.
out there. So,
That's right. Yeah, one of the things I think my colleagues and myself, especially at Rutgers, we don't formally use this phrase. It comes from when I served on a local school board. But our goal is, or our goal, or my goal is to really create lifelong learners, independent thinkers, and responsible citizens. And if you can hit the mark in those three, you can survive and thrive, in this kind of environment. Uh, because one thing I think, also not sitting out. I think you also want to think about, instead of the dream job, um, focus on developing a personal mission and having a personal mission. So for me, I developed mine probably in my late 20s, and it all came together where I'm about empowering people with economic thought and analysis, and communities with empowering them. And I've found it to be much more comforting, or much more easy to sort of weather the storms of, because I've grown up, as I came of age in the 1980s recession, which was at that time the worst recession since the Great Depression. And then I actually came out into the job market in the 1990s, early 1990s, during a weaker recession, but still, it affected the kinds of interviews I had, the number of interviews. So to really work on building that personal mission, I think that is a key tactic, key strategy that can help you uh, net network, uh, help you just also have greater peace, less anxiety. Uh, because if you have that personal mission, you're not wrapped up in, like, I want to do this job. And as we saw with with over the last decade or so, there are lots of jobs that existed 5 years ago don't exist today. And now with this pandemic and our response to it, there are going to be even other jobs that are going to become dinosaurs, and we'll have no one no one in those cells. And BLS does the calculations, and they're going to have to adjust and come up with new occupations. So, lifelong learner, independent thinker, and responsible citizen.
I think that's really great advice, because I think focusing on the personal mission. I mean, there's many different jobs that are going to allow you to make progress on that, and then there are also things that you do in your personal life, right? So, and often, if you feel like you're making progress on that personal mission, even if other things are not going as you planned, it can help
Mhm.
you feel like you're moving forward.
Exactly, exactly. And you can always change your personal mission, right? But having that there
It
is a,
evolves.
it's an anchor.
And before we want to open it up for questions in just a second, but I just want to mention. So I graduated into a recession as well, and I know that overall the data says that people who graduate into a recession, on average, earn less over their lifetime. Right? Do you have any advice for people in terms of how to beat the odds? I mean, these things are out of people's controls, but you also don't necessarily have to be the average. Right? Are there any things that people can do to help swing this a little bit in a different direction?
Yeah, I think number one, it's getting back to, because it's just as said, shared, having developing that personal mission. It's also number two, um, developing that network of advocates for your success, and these can be your parents, these can be your relatives, these can be friends, they can also be neighbors, they can be coworkers and colleagues. But to really, really build that network of advocates for your success. And in there, you may have some mentors. And the reason why they're different. A mentor is like someone I want to be like. I want to be like Mike. That whole phrase with Michael Jordan. But an advocate is someone who sleeps and breathes and really is concerned about you, and that their success, that their well-being hinges upon on your well-being. I had a fellow who would serve that purpose for me when I was making the jump from grad school to becoming an assistant professor, and and Mike really opened up a whole set of opportunities, or the opportunity to become the chief economist at the Labor Department. That was because I had developed a set of advocates for my success
Mhm.
who really went to bat for me, went out on a limb, and also shared with me opportunities that were emerging. I think the other piece too in this time is 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 when you're sending out letters and following up, that that you don't so much as view those exchanges as like, I got to get a job, I need a job. View those as the present yourself as, I'm interested in learning about your business, learning about your industry. And so you're starting to build networks up. And so when that person, oh my gosh, we have an opportunity, that they will, you will come up on their list, on their, you'll stay on their radar. Um, the other thing too is, one may want to think about continuing in school. I mean, that's another thing we see in the data, right? That when you get economic downturns, you get a lot of people going back to school. And if you can, and then that's a big thing. If you can afford it, you're also there. You're there mentally. Maybe a good place to be a refuge, and hang out until the economy gets better. Because you are right. I had done some work on racial inequality, and the cohort of young black men who came into the economy in the early '80s, and they came out right during that recession, that 81, 82 recession. It took almost a decade for their wages to recover, to their peers. So what you're saying is very real, but if you focus on the things that you can control, so I can control my attitude, I can control how many resumes I send out, I can control the network that I build, and also, again, building on y'all's strength about the only thing that's certain is change, right? Is that uh, one of my supporters, with another advocate, he had always said to me early, and he says to his other students, always know where your next job is. Always know where your next job is, and you can. That doesn't mean you have to be unfaithful or not loyal to your current worker, but we live in a very different age, right? Where many of you may have seen your parents have been laid off, or you're seeing your parents who had been with a company for 20, 30 years, and the company viewed them as being, too costly and let them go. And so, yes, the loyalty on both sides has weakened, but and so we live in, some people call us, we live in a free agent society, and you have to, and the best advocate for yourself is yourself. As another mentor of mine had said to me.
So I just wanted to open it up for questions, and I think we have at least one question coming in. Stacy, are you able to help us out with that? Okay, I don't know if maybe Stacy might be having some issues with her audio, but one of the questions was, do you have any specific recommendations for upskilling? Like, are there particular skills that you think are going to give people a bit more traction? Um,
Yeah, and I had done a talk on this issue a number of years ago, and where I came out on that, it wasn't so much skills, it was maybe more competencies. And this is a part of my conversation about having a personal mission, that that you build that personal mission, then you identify those sort of potential jobs that exist right now that you feel you could compete for, and then you kind of look at their job description, or you look, or this is looking forward, or if those who are still undergrads, or you're going on to grad school, but you end up looking at those and saying, okay, now what are the skills and competencies I need to have in order to play in that arena? And then move it backwards and say, okay, now how do I? Oh, we live in a globalized world. We need to be culturally competent, and I think this is something very, very important. And this is one of the things I say to my students here at Rutgers. You all are blessed. Right? Got a kid who goes to school out in the Midwest, or I have friends who teach at Middlebury College, and they think that they have the most diversity. I'm like, oh no, you need to come spend time with us. Our two U.S. senators are men of color. We really, we are really getting a great education and terms of being us becoming helping you become culturally competent. We do a great job here of that, I think, at Rutgers, and so that's one piece, is being culturally competent. Two, the job market is no longer the best job market is no longer here in the U.S. Look abroad. I mean, right now is a tough time to be thinking about wanting to go work abroad, but once we get to this new normal and things get more stable, I still would recommend you all looking abroad, or you may have to be comfortable in the job that you take here that could be predominantly in the U.S., but some part of your career, in terms of it for advancement, you may need to live abroad. Uh, and then part of my thing about, as I said, a lifelong learner, independent thinker, responsible citizen, it's really part of that is problem solving, being able to be analytical. That's one thing I impart upon with my students that I just finished in an economic policy class, and it's just really about getting them to be problem solvers, be able to think out of the box, and then also being able to work in teams. Even though we're now remote in a lot of our situations, we're still working in teams. We're not a bricks and mortar kind of economy anymore. That most of you all will be graduating, and the guys especially, right? You guys have to have those teamwork skills and being able to build consensus. Those are those are the, sort of my three that I impart on a lot of people, and the other is when it's appropriate. Rutgers is for many of you, if you're in the traditional approach, Rutgers is you're getting your content degree, what I call it. So I'm going to be an economics major, a public policy major, a chemistry major, but you're going to need that master's degree, or even I would hope that you would consider a PhD, right? To where, and it could be a PhD in business administration or a PhD in public policy, but or you get your JD degree. And why am I saying that? Well, so you get your content degree. Now, when you graduate and work for a few years or go straight through, get that what I would call the professional degree, where you can then apply the content degree in a legal setting, or in a public policy setting, and then you also add on that you're culturally competent, and you have a diversity of experiences. Again, not just race and ethnicity, but point of view. I think you present a very formidable and very interesting portfolio of competencies and skills.
Right, and that can be helpful too, because as we know too, when the economy tightens, skill requirements go up generally. And it was ironic because just a few months ago, I was at a conference with employers, and they were talking about how they had all lowered their skill requirements to attract more workers.
That's right.
So now degree requirements are going to go up, skill requirements are going to go up. So follow the trends and stay in touch with people and identify those skill gaps that you have between where you are and where you would like to go.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is, right, that even if it's a swoosh type of recovery, that employer that this issue of maybe employers starting to raise their competency levels. If they do it, it'll be short lived.
Yes.
Short lived.
Yes, because I think they learned some lessons in the last recession that they set the bar so high that they had trouble creating a pipeline in some way.
That's right.
Require 10 years of experience in a technology that's only been out for 5 years, you're gonna have trouble. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're wondering why they couldn't find workers.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the other piece about this too is, I think going forward, people are going to employers who act socially conscious and socially responsible in this pandemic. I think they will have a better track record, or at least a better ability to attract and reattract employees. So, look for those employers who are really getting it right, and are model model citizens, because I think that's another way that you all, you all want a job or you want to start a career, but you all can also set the tone as to which employers are going to be the employers of choice, um, and that can be driven by your generation in terms of saying, well, they took several $1 million from the program that was supposed to go to small businesses. I don't want to work for them. That's a value that they're crossing, and so you may think at times, well, I don't have any agency or I don't have any control, uh, but you as a generation, especially with social media, you all can definitely influence who the successful firms are going to be.
Sure. Okay. All right. So we've run over time a little bit, so I do want to kind of officially let people go if you need to run to class, etc. If you have an extra couple of minutes, and I don't know if there are additional questions out there, those answered. Does anyone else like to ask a question? Feel free to write it in the Q&A. Okay. All right. I don't see anything else coming in. I think that was very thorough. So thank you. I really thank you for spending your time. I know that you're doing a lot of media interviews these days, and you're also doing the very hard work of getting our economy back up and running. So thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with students. And
my pleasure, and love to do it again.
Yes, you're always very committed to the students. Really appreciate that. It's excellent. And great to see you.
You too. Good to see you too, Jen. Thank you.
All right. Stay well.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Peace.